Have you ever stopped to think about what it would be like to experience a love that defies all the rules? Not just societal norms, but also the ones you impose on yourself? Thomas Whitmore, one of the most powerful men in the United States, never imagined he would face such a battle, balancing the weight of being vice president with the burden of a love that, for years, remained hidden in the shadows. And Emma Carter, a brilliant and determined young woman, found no better man to challenge prejudices and transform her own life. But what happens when two lives so different cross paths in a world filled with critical stares, relentless judgment, and impossible expectations? Thomas and Emma discovered that true love doesn't ask for permission, nor does it bow to conventions. Instead, it demands the courage to be fully lived. In this video, you'll get to know their story, a tale of challenges, resilience, and an unbreakable bond that shook not only their lives but also the entire political landscape. Get ready to dive into a narrative that intertwines power, passion, and the choices that define who we are. What would you do if the love of your life was also the greatest challenge of your existence? Thomas and Emma answered that question with courage and determination, and you'll soon understand why. At 39 years old, Thomas Whitmore stood out as a true prodigy in American politics. Rising to the position of Vice President of the United States was not just a historic achievement but a crowning moment in a career built on intelligence and sharp insight. From a young age, his communication skills captivated those around him, earning him a reputation as a natural strategist. Yet, Thomas carried a secret that, even in the corridors of power, remained hidden. A love as intense as it was impossible. It was Emma Carter, the adopted daughter of his aunt, who occupied his thoughts, stirring emotions he fought hard to suppress. Thomas was a man driven by principles, and perhaps because of this, the complexity of his feelings for Emma challenged him deeply. Knowing her since she was 16, when he was already 31, created an inexplicable bond. He sought to guide her, as a mentor would, but every conversation seemed to awaken something deeper. However, Thomas was disciplined. He knew that a single misstep could not only jeopardize his trust but also the trust Emma had in him. So, he did what any leader facing an internal dilemma would do. He restrained himself and waited. Politics, which seemed to be his destined path, helped Thomas mask his emotional turmoil. While he spoke passionately about freedom, equality, and happiness for Americans, he himself was a prisoner of a feeling he dared not express. Between the lines of his speeches lay something more, a longing for something beyond conventions. To the world, shining beside the president, he appeared as a man wholly in control. No one would imagine he carried a love that challenged not only prejudice but also the unspoken rules of his position. Emma, a young woman with a sparkle in her eyes and an insatiable curiosity, awakened in Thomas a confusing blend of inspiration and fear. He admired her independent spirit and her ability to face challenges head-on. During that unforgettable summer they spent together, Thomas realized his love for Emma was not a choice but an immutable fact. Even so, the fear of public judgment and the potential for scandal made him suppress every feeling. Like many who face moral dilemmas, Thomas sought answers in philosophy and literature. He often quoted Socrates to justify his restraint, "Know thyself." Perhaps this was why he never crossed the line, not for lack of desire but out of an unshakable sense of responsibility. Behind the scenes of his public life, he lived what many would call a Shakespearean drama, where love and duty waged an unrelenting battle. Despite the weight of his position and the complexities of his personal life, Thomas was admired for his impeccable demeanor. Many wondered about the secret to his political success, but few knew that part of it stemmed from his ability to channel emotional energy into greater causes. He believed that leading with love, even repressed love, was the purest form of governance. Yet, while the world saw him as an exemplary leader, deep within his soul, he hoped fate would grant him the chance to live his truth. But fate, as we all know, is unpredictable. Thomas may never have planned to confront his feelings, but the twists of life, like a powerful river, often carry us to places we least expect. And so, he continued navigating, torn between his secret love and the demands of a nation that expected nothing less than perfection from him. That summer was the starting point of a connection that not even time could sever. Emma Carter, at 16, embodied curiosity and youthful vigor, while Thomas, at 31, already bore the weight of political responsibilities on his shoulders. In that secluded country house, the rising vice president found himself mentoring his distant niece. Their exchange of ideas was natural, fluid, almost magical. Thomas shared lessons on philosophy and politics, while Emma, with her pure, dream-filled perspective on the world, helped him see beyond the seriousness of his career. They spent entire afternoons discussing books that had shaped generations. Emma, with her bright eyes, devoured the pages of authors like Dostoevsky, whom Thomas recommended, fascinated by the depth of the human mind. He, in turn, was captivated by her insightful interpretations, realizing that her intelligence was not just promising but inspired. Their dynamic went beyond that of teacher and student. It was a meeting of souls, albeit wrapped in a veil of innocence. However, what began as a mentorship soon evolved into something more complex. Thomas, ever cautious, avoided any situation that might be interpreted as inappropriate. Even so, there were moments when their exchanged glances spoke more than words ever could. How could he forget the moment he taught Emma to play the piano? Her clumsy fingers hovered over the keys while he guided her with steady confidence, creating a melody that would echo forever in their memories. With each conversation, Thomas watched Emma grow before his eyes. She challenged him with difficult questions, the kind even the Senate hadn't dared to ask. "If you could change one law forever, what would it be?" she asked one day, sitting on the porch with a cup of tea in her hands. He laughed, avoiding a clear answer, but deep down, he knew he was rewriting the most important law of all, the law of his own life, where his heart was beginning to guide him more than his reason. But like all summers, this one too had its inevitable end. With Emma's departure to finish high school in another city, the country house lost its vitality. Thomas, ever so methodical, began avoiding the place, as if every corner served as a reminder of the emotions he struggled to suppress. And yet, he knew that the bond they had formed, though never expressed in words, was far from broken. Some might say that summer was just a fleeting experience, but Thomas knew it was the beginning of something he couldn't control. He carried with him the memory of the smiles, the laughter, and the profound conversations that had made his world seem brighter. Emma, in turn, would never forget the man who had introduced her to the challenges of the world but who, inexplicably, made her feel safe and understood. However, as fate so often toys with us, the time between that summer and the future would bring more than just memories. As Emma set off in pursuit of her own dreams, Thomas remained tethered to his. The bond they shared seemed too strong to be undone, but what the future held for them, no one could predict. When Emma turned 18, her departure for Paris left a void in Thomas's heart. He knew it was the right thing to do, encouraging her to explore the world, grow, and pursue her own dreams. Yet, the silence that followed her farewell was deafening. Thomas, so accustomed to handling political and social challenges, felt powerless in the face of an absence that seemed larger than any obstacle in his career. Even so, he encouraged her, as he always did, knowing that true love, even silent, is patient. The distance brought with it a new challenge, maintaining their connection without crossing the boundaries he had imposed on himself. Thomas avoided sending letters, fearing they might be misinterpreted, but he followed every piece of news about Emma. He knew she was growing, discovering who she truly was. Meanwhile, in his own life, he declined invitations to dates or relationships, diving deeper into his work as though politics were his only refuge. Paris, on the other hand, seemed to awaken in Emma a spirit of adventure and independence. She immersed herself in her studies of art and philosophy, exploring the cultural facets of a city that had inspired so many before her. Even from thousands of kilometers away, there were moments when she found herself thinking of Thomas. It wasn't just longing, it was the feeling that something between them remained unfinished, like a book with its final pages torn away. For Thomas, time seemed to pass in a blend of routine and anticipation. He excelled in the political arena, achieving victories that made him a nationally respected figure. And yet, whenever someone asked him about his personal life, he gave evasive answers. "I'm focused on my work," he'd say with a calculated smile, while his heart quietly murmured Emma's name. It was a silent wait, but one filled with hope. During those years of separation, Thomas found solace in small rituals that subtly connected him to Emma. He began visiting art exhibitions, even without much personal interest, just to better understand the world that was now a part of her life. He also started reading about the French artists Emma admired, as if doing so could somehow keep her closer. Thomas's greatest fear was forgetting. He knew that time could erase memories, change feelings, and reshape dreams. Yet his determination to wait for Emma was unwavering. It was a love that defied logic, that resisted prejudice and social expectations. From time to time, he questioned whether he was being foolish, but deep down, he believed that some connections were destined to survive any distance. When Emma finally graduated, Thomas received the news with a mix of pride and anxiety. He knew that a reunion was inevitable, but what would it mean for both of them? He had no answers, only the certainty that his hope would somehow be rewarded. Fate was in motion once again, and the stage was being set for something neither of them could foresee. When Thomas stepped into the chandelier-lit hall, he was unprepared for the impact of seeing her again. Emma, now 24, radiated a confidence and elegance that left him momentarily speechless. The diplomatic event, teeming with leaders and influencers, seemed like an intimidating backdrop for such an intense reunion. But a single shared glance between them made time feel as if it had stopped. In that instant, the years of separation melted away, and the emotions they had buried resurfaced with undeniable force. Emma felt the weight of the moment too. Thomas, now 39, still carried the same charisma and seriousness she had always admired, but there was something more in his gaze now, an intensity she couldn't ignore. During the formal greetings and brief exchanges, she noticed her hands trembling slightly, a subtle sign that this encounter was stirring feelings she hadn't anticipated. Then, as he finally addressed her directly, his words, though simple, carried profound meaning. "You're even more extraordinary than I remembered," he said with a sincere smile. Their reunion didn't end with polite glances and small talk. Seated next to each other during the formal dinner, as if fate had orchestrated it, their conversation flowed naturally, though a clear subtext ran beneath every word. They talked about art, politics, and the years they had spent apart. Emma, now a confident and mature woman, challenged Thomas with her strong opinions, while he found himself even more captivated by her intelligence and striking presence. The palpable tension between them was impossible to ignore. At one point, as Thomas absent-mindedly placed his hand over Emma's to emphasize a point, the spark between them was undeniable. Both pulled back almost instantly, but the look they exchanged said it all. The feelings they had tried to bury were very much alive. In that moment, Thomas realized his long wait had not been in vain, and Emma began to grasp the depth of what they shared. After the event, Thomas couldn't resist the urge to seek her out. On the building's terrace, with the city lights twinkling in the background, he asked her about her life in Paris, her accomplishments, and her dreams. Emma responded candidly but also hinted at something more, something she seemed to be holding back. Thomas could see this conversation was only the beginning of a journey that would transform both their lives. Even amidst their reunion, Thomas wrestled with the implications of his feelings. He knew his role as vice president demanded an impeccable image and that any relationship with Emma could be ruthlessly exploited by the media. Yet he couldn't deny what he felt. It was as though his deep sense of duty was being challenged, and for the first time in years, he was tempted to follow his heart. As the night came to an end, both Emma and Thomas understood this encounter wasn't a mere coincidence. They felt an undeniable connection, something far greater than either of them could ignore or dismiss. But the question remained, what would they do about it? The world around them was filled with barriers, but the desire to face those challenges together was beginning to take shape in their hearts. When Thomas stepped into the chandelier-lit hall, he was unprepared for the impact of seeing her again. Emma, now 24, radiated a confidence and elegance that left him momentarily speechless. The diplomatic event, teeming with leaders and influencers, seemed like an intimidating backdrop for such an intense reunion. But a single shared glance between them made time feel as if it had stopped. In that instant, the years of separation melted away, and the emotions they had buried resurfaced with undeniable force. Emma felt the weight of the moment too. Thomas, now 39, still carried the same charisma and seriousness she had always admired, but there was something more in his gaze now, an intensity she couldn't ignore. During the formal greetings and brief exchanges, she noticed her hands trembling slightly, a subtle sign that this encounter was stirring feelings she hadn't anticipated. Then, as he finally addressed her directly, his words, though simple, carried profound meaning. "You're even more extraordinary than I remembered," he said with a sincere smile. Their reunion didn't end with polite glances and small talk. Seated next to each other during the formal dinner, as if fate had orchestrated it, their conversation flowed naturally, though a clear subtext ran beneath every word. They talked about art, politics, and the years they had spent apart. Emma, now a confident and mature woman, challenged Thomas with her strong opinions, while he found himself even more captivated by her intelligence and striking presence. The palpable tension between them was impossible to ignore. At one point, as Thomas absent-mindedly placed his hand over Emma's to emphasize a point, the spark between them was undeniable. Both pulled back almost instantly, but the look they exchanged said it all. The feelings they had tried to bury were very much alive. In that moment, Thomas realized his long wait had not been in vain, and Emma began to grasp the depth of what they shared. After the event, Thomas couldn't resist the urge to seek her out. On the building's terrace, with the city lights twinkling in the background, he asked her about her life in Paris, her accomplishments, and her dreams. Emma responded candidly but also hinted at something more, something she seemed to be holding back. Thomas could see this conversation was only the beginning of a journey that would transform both their lives. Even amidst their reunion, Thomas wrestled with the implications of his feelings. He knew his role as vice president demanded an impeccable image and that any relationship with Emma could be ruthlessly exploited by the media. Yet he couldn't deny what he felt. It was as though his deep sense of duty was being challenged, and for the first time in years, he was tempted to follow his heart. As the night came to an end, both Emma and Thomas understood this encounter wasn't a mere coincidence. They felt an undeniable connection, something far greater than either of them could ignore or dismiss. But the question remained, what would they do about it? The world around them was filled with barriers, but the desire to face those challenges together was beginning to take shape in their hearts. A few days after their reunion, Thomas could no longer contain the whirlwind of emotions overwhelming him. He arranged a discreet dinner, far from the spotlight of politics and societal pressures. Seated on a small balcony of a secluded restaurant, with the stars as their witnesses, Thomas finally broke the silence he had carried for years. "Emma," he began, his voice filled with sincerity, "I've waited for this moment longer than you can imagine." The intensity in his gaze revealed that what he was about to say was not something he often shared, not even with himself. Emma, for her part, felt the weight of every word. She knew this moment would change everything between them, yet she wasn't prepared for the depth of what he revealed. "I've never stopped thinking about you," he continued. "All these years, politics gave me a reason to keep moving forward, but it was you who truly made me get up every day." His words hung in the air like a forbidden confession, laden with truth and vulnerability. There was something almost cinematic about the scene. Emma, now a confident and articulate woman, didn't hesitate to reciprocate Thomas's emotional openness. "I missed you too," she admitted, her calm demeanor masking the intense emotions bubbling inside her. "But I never knew if you really thought of me, or if I was just a distant memory." This exchange of feelings, repressed for so long, transformed the dinner into something far beyond the simple act of sharing a meal. Hearing those words, Thomas realized his patience had not been in vain. With a steady but emotional voice, he declared, "It's not just about thinking of you, Emma. I knew you needed to live, to grow, and I respected that. But I never doubted that one day our paths would cross again." He briefly held her hand, as if to ensure his words carried more than empty promises. In that gesture, it felt as though he was offering not just his love but also his trust. Their conversation was punctuated by weighted silences, as both processed the magnitude of what was unfolding. Emma, ever forthright, finally asked, "And now, Thomas? What do we do with this?" He knew this was the pivotal question, one that would determine not only the future of their feelings but also the impact on their public lives. With a deep sigh, he replied, "We face it together. No matter what the world thinks, what I feel for you is stronger than any challenge." Still, Thomas was keenly aware of the obstacles they would face. He spoke candidly about his fears with Emma, not just about societal judgment but also the potential impact on his political career. "They won't understand," he said, referring to the public and the media. "But honestly, Emma, I've never cared less about what others think than I do right now." Emma, with the wisdom she had gained over the years, responded, "If it's real, Thomas, it's worth fighting for." The night ended with more questions than answers, but they both knew they had taken the first step towards something they could no longer avoid. There was an overwhelming force in their emotions, and despite all the risks, the decision to move forward together began to take shape. The future seemed uncertain, yet it was also full of possibilities, some daunting, others perhaps extraordinary. It didn't take long for Thomas and Emma's relationship to become the center of attention. An anonymous photographer, armed with a powerful lens and a knack for scandal, captured an intimate moment between them. Within days, headlines erupted. U.S. Vice President and mysterious young woman. Love or controversy? Society, always eager for swift judgments, reacted with a mix of surprise, outrage, and speculation. The scandal wasn't just personal, it was political, and Thomas knew his career was on the line. Emma, despite her youth, demonstrated remarkable composure amidst the media storm. In brief interviews, she affirmed her character and explained that her story with Thomas was one of mutual love and respect, not manipulation or self-interest. Even so, the criticism was brutal. A vice president must set an example. Some proclaimed. Others, however, viewed their relationship as an act of courage, challenging societal prejudices and rigid norms. Thomas, in turn, maintained a calm and strategic demeanor, as though preparing for a political battle. He knew he needed to address the issue directly, without allowing the narrative to be shaped by the media or his critics. In a historic speech broadcast nationwide, Thomas finally broke his silence. "Love is not a crime. What I feel for Emma does not compromise my commitment to this country. On the contrary, it strengthens my belief that honesty and courage are essential to leadership." The speech wasn't just a defense, it was a direct challenge to prejudice. Thomas spoke about the difficulties of balancing personal and public life, questioning why society was quick to judge a genuine love while ignoring far more pressing issues. "My story with Emma is the story of two adults who chose to fight for what they believe in, even if it challenges expectations. If that is a mistake, then I accept the consequences, but I will not back down." The public's response was polarized. Some saw him as a passionate man willing to risk everything for love, while others questioned his ethics and judgment. On social media, hashtags like #LoveIsLove and #ScandalVicePresident waged daily battles. The press remained divided, with some columns defending Thomas and others calling for his resignation. Emma became a symbol of feminine strength, admired by many, criticized by others. The atmosphere was one of constant tension, but Thomas understood that great leaders rise in moments of crisis. He began using the scandal as a platform to address broader issues such as individual freedom and equality. In interviews and debates, he challenged his opponents. "If we cannot accept love in its many forms, how can we hope to lead a nation as diverse as ours?" Emma, on her side, became a living reminder that personal choices have public consequences but also the power to inspire. Despite the turmoil, the bond between Thomas and Emma only grew stronger. They knew the road ahead would be arduous, but they were committed to facing it together. The political and social pressure was immense, but it only reinforced their determination. On the horizon, a wedding began to take shape, not just as a celebration of their love but as a public declaration that they were ready to face any adversity as a united front. Thomas and Emma's wedding was anything but conventional. Held in an intimate ceremony far from cameras and public clamor, the event brought together only close family and trusted friends. There were no extravagant luxuries or rehearsed speeches. The focus was solely on the love that bound them. The altar, set in a clearing surrounded by trees, symbolized the simplicity and authenticity they sought in their union. As they exchanged vows, Thomas looked into Emma's eyes and said, "I promise to be your ally in every challenge we face." Their choice of a discreet celebration was deliberate. Thomas knew that his political position turned every detail of his life into a public spectacle, but this moment was solely for them. Despite their efforts, curiosity could not be escaped. Unauthorized photos leaked, showing the couple dancing beneath the soft lights of the ceremony. For many, it was an iconic image, a national leader surrendering to the most human of emotions, love. The wedding was not just the culmination of their story but also the beginning of a new chapter. Emma, with her intelligence and sensitivity, took on a prominent role alongside Thomas. As his greatest ally, she immersed herself in social and cultural causes, using her background in art and philosophy to bridge politics with deeper aspects of human life. Together, they became a symbol of unity and resilience. Public reaction to the wedding was as varied as it had been during the initial scandal. Some viewed it as an act of courage and grace, while others remained skeptical, questioning whether it would compromise Thomas's image as a strong leader. However, he stood firm. What defines a leader is not how they are perceived but how they choose to act, he stated in interviews. His resolute stance, paired with Emma's steady presence by his side, began to win over even the harshest critics. The wedding also had a profound impact on Thomas's presidential campaign. While opponents tried to weaponize the relationship, Thomas found in Emma's support a strength few politicians could claim. She was not merely his wife, she was his partner in every sense. Together, they faced debates and challenges with a synergy that inspired many. It was impossible not to see that their relationship transcended the personal. It was a testament to how love can be transformative. For Emma, the marriage also brought new responsibilities. As the vice president's wife and a potential future first lady, she knew her life would be under constant scrutiny. Yet, she used this visibility as a platform to challenge prejudices and advocate for her beliefs. Always at Thomas's side, she proved that even in a world eager to label and constrain, it was possible to remain authentic and true to oneself. Now, with Thomas at 40 and Emma at 25, they looked to the future with determination. The love that had brought them together had become a driving force, and together, they were ready to turn challenges into opportunities. Their wedding was not the end of a journey but the start of another, one that promised to be as intense and inspiring as the events that had led them to this point. And now, after hearing this story of passion, courage, and determination, I ask you, what are you willing to do to live your truth? Thomas and Emma showed that true love isn't for the faint of heart. It demands tough choices, confronting prejudice, and above all, extraordinary strength. And you? Are you living the life you truly desire, or are you still trapped by the fear of others' judgment? Think about it. What barriers do you need to break to stay true to yourself? Why not start today? Share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this inspire us to look inward and question what really matters. If you enjoyed this journey and want to continue exploring themes like love, resilience, and the courage to be yourself, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's much more inspiring content on the way to help you live a full and authentic life. See you in the next video.